Hello and welcome. I'm Amritanshu Rai and you're watching Law of the Land on Rajya Sabha TV. Today we bring to you the National Commission for Heritage Sites Bill, which seeks to create a roster of heritage sites for effective maintenance. To discuss the issue, I have with me Mr. Sanjay Parekh from the Supreme Court, advocate in the Supreme Court, and Professor Cambo from School of Planning and Architecture. Now for the headlines. The National Commission for Heritage Sites Bill seeks to define the term heritage for better preservation of monuments, culture and art. Under the bill, the Heritage Commission will be made the nodal agency for identifying and notifying heritage sites. As of now, this mandate lies with the Archaeological Survey of India, ASI. The bill does not deal with issues like lack of infrastructure and funds for heritage protection concerns. The National Commission for Heritage Sites Bill seeks to provide protection and maintenance for the Indian heritage sites. The bill seeks to create a list of heritage sites and also intends to authorize societies and individuals for the upkeep of the sites. As of now, the Archaeological Survey of India is tasked with this activity.
This site is maintained by the Archaeological Survey of India, but similar sites all over India have been suffering due to lack of funds and upkeep. In order to ensure better maintenance of heritage sites, the government proposes the National Commission for Heritage Sites Bill. The bill seeks to create guidelines for maintenance and conservation of Indian religious and cultural sites.
Archaeological survey is only interested in 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of the monuments that have a certain period. We should only protect them, because if the ghats disappear, then what's the point of the whole site? But then I would go much further. What if the Ganga becomes a polluted sewer? Does that allow the ghats to be what they were? Many things get connected. So you cannot isolate the material from the non-material.
The National Commission for Heritage Sites Bill proposes protection and promotion of the ancient monuments, ethnic and arty heritage across India. According to the bill, a Heritage Commission will be set up which will create a heritage roster of sites with a historical perspective. The Commission will identify sites based on religion, ethnicity and ancient sculptures. The Commission will also lay down standards to develop scientific and technical institutions and courses. The Commission will be able to authorize a society or an organization and direct the owner of the site to give up control over the site for maintenance. The person in charge of the site may also be restrained from endangering or damaging the site. Any person who fails to comply will be subject to a fine up to 10 lakh rupees.
The idea of having a new law to consolidate all the aspects is something which I really welcome. But the difficulty is that it talks only about laying down the guidelines and permitting access to in situations for probably looking at the monument, and if somebody doesn't provide access, then to impose fine. But that is not enough.
Heritage not only lies in buildings, constructions, tombs and masks, it also lies in paintings and artistic creations. But most of these artistic creations are controlled and preserved by the artistic societies or by the artists. By extending the term heritage and adding paintings and articrafts to the existing works, government is now trying to protect these artifacts too.
The National Commission for Heritage Sites was initiated by UNESCO in its convention in 1972. UNESCO engaged India to endorse the convention to protect Indian monuments and heritage places. While the bill has new classifications in line with the UNESCO convention, the definitions in the existing laws which protect monuments have not been amended. Raj Kamal, Rajya Sabha TV.
Once the bill is passed by the Parliament, the National Commission for Heritage will replace the ASI as the nodal agency. The first question to you, Mr. Parekh. See, expansion of the term and expansion of the definition of the term heritage, how relevant it is, how important is it?
See, if you look at I'll say the old act as such, the 1958 act, it had only the historical perspective. that you are talking of a monument, you are talking of a archaeological site, remains, etc. It's a wider, very wide perspective, because when we talk of culture, we don't attach the meaning of culture only to historical perspective. It is something which is relatable to art, our religion, and so many other things which are ethnicity, etc.
Is all that covered?
Is all that ought to be covered, because see, when we talk of civilization, there has to be a continuity, a linkage. And I think, you know, when we are talking, say, in 18th century, 19th century, or this particular old act, these perspectives are not in mind. So there has to be continuity, and the most important thing is for the present and future generation, this has to be preserved. In that sense, I think the definition is certainly a welcome stand.
On the definition bit, do you think by just expanding the definition of the term heritage will really change anything?
I think this archaeological act, which was 1958, and then there are things that were added also, it still doesn't cover the cultural heritage. You know. Example which are shown on this screen itself is very limited. We do not have even the whole inventory in the country. Our information only about 1903. Prior to that, we were only building and demolishing one after another itself. Though the act which was set up in 1958 is still do not cover what Mr. Thapar has said itself here. It needs a wider scope. You know, cultural heritage is not just a building. You know, it's not only the open spaces. There are spaces which are belong to people here. The community spaces here. Archaeology has done its work, but still it's not scientific lines.
So if heritage comes in with the cultural aspect, then defining culture then goes on to it opens up another huge chapter of codification and layers. What do you say?
It ought to be, because, see, when we talk of even like it was mentioned, take for example Ganga, the ancient culture which has been and religion which is associated with it. Take for example Ghalib. Now recently Azok, etc., all these things come. The question is that we are not talking only in terms of the historical perspective as we think of, but a continuity of civilization. Once we talk of that, and which has to be preserved, like natural heritage. Now natural heritage, there are so many ecologically sensitive areas. They have to be preserved not only for the present generation, but for the future generation. So therefore a codification, it is necessary that you must have a register where you maintain. It's a different thing, we'll come probably to a criticism of the bill later on. But as far as the definition part is concerned, the UNESCO convention which we ratified, I think it ought to have been, and the old one which if you look at it,
was not sufficient.
It was not only inadequate, but even if you look at the implementation part of it, it was totally probably unsatisfactory.
This bill will replace ASI, which is now the nodal agency for archaeological activity and protection of heritage sites, and shift it to the National Commission for Heritage. What kind of an impact will that have?
I would suggest that the Act of Archaeology Act is slightly different than that here. You cannot replace one act here. The Cultural Act is much more comprehensive because it needs a scientific outlook as well as. We are only done by only history. History is not the only thing itself here. Something beyond history. As I said, the area which is required today is biological. There is construction, renovation, painting, sculpture, as Mr. Thapar said here. You need a much wider scope. Idea is not to replace Archaeological Act, the input which is there. One act of Archaeology Act can separate itself here. This area, because which is of national importance. The first is national importance. Second is the locally important. Third is community based here. I think religion, other thing has to be slightly separate here. The act must have comprehensive knowledge, and it requires scientific approach now. The archaeological approach was only limited to one sector itself. They are taking sites.
Does it have it? Does it address all the issues that you bring
No,
out?
the Archaeological Act do not so far. Although they have amended from time to time, but this is still not comprehensive in nature, what we require for the coming generation as well as here.
On that note, it's time for us to head into a break. When we come back, we will talk about the existing legal framework to ensure upkeep of our heritage. Welcome back. The Heritage Bill seeks to define heritage site in context of the UNESCO Convention, but the definitions in the existing acts are yet to be amended to bring them in line with the proposed bill's definition. According to experts, there is no change in the way sites are currently protected.
There are largely three laws governing the upkeep and maintenance of heritage site. The Archaeological Survey of India, state archaeological departments are responsible for protection and conservation of cultural sites.
There are many laws that, refer to this larger ambit of heritage. Now, this duplicity is part of our history, part of our systems that we've adopted.
According to the proposed law, the central government shall appoint a 9-member commission including a member secretary and chairperson. Under the bill, the committee will identify and notify heritage sites. These sites will be entered in the national roster, and the Commission of Heritage Sites will formulate guidelines for protection and conservation of heritage sites. The commission shall recommend the central and state governments policies in respect of conservation, protection and management of heritage sites.
Yes, I will certainly not feel happy with this national bill, and the reason is very simple. The powers of the ASI will be clipped. The national body shall look into it. Surely they will give their inputs, but the entire monopoly and the entire system as to how the policies have to be made, how the sites have to be preserved, maintained, their policies, their input, their guidelines will all be now controlled by the big brother. So naturally the power shall smoothly be transferred to the central body, which will be the National Commission. So none of these smaller bodies are going to like.
The National Commission for Heritage Sites Bill seems to prove an inherent framework for the protection and maintenance of Indian heritage sites, provided it can tackle the issue of employee shortage in ASI offices and state departments. Raj Kamal, Rajya Sabha TV.
The proposed law merely seeks to provide a legal structure but does not attempt to create synergy with the existing laws. Yes, sir. Professor Campbell, is that how you feel?
No, I think the law says that only 100 years building of importance could be taken care of. But there are structures which are more important than this one, like Rashtrapati Bhavan itself here. It has not completed 100 years. It doesn't come under this one here. So this is a very vague sort of the time period on which the Archaeological Act says here. No? There's a need to look into that. What is those values which society needs? Society respect that here. What is those institutions which have given something to the country itself here? Importance of that has to be paid here.
100 years, that's the time limit that he points out. But beyond that, going beyond that, does it provide a synergy with the other existing laws?
See, if you analyze the old act, that is when I say 1958 act, which is also current act, when I say old only for the purpose of understanding. Now, that talks about the protection of the monuments and archaeological sites of national importance. Now, which are not of national importance, that task has been given to the state.
Yes.
And the state has number of enactments, as you know, which are not of national importance. Now, these are the only two areas which are covered than 100 years. What about the other part of it, which is actually important for the present and future generation when we talk of culture and natural heritage? That is covered. Unfortunately, though it says of outstanding value, the register will be created. That's how it mentions. But when it, in section 3 probably, it says only of national importance. And one criticism probably which has been laid down, and correctly so, that we should not again go to national importance, because national importance is a criteria which will be very difficult to define. So it has to be outstanding value to the humanity, to the people. That has to be taken into consideration. So therefore, in the bill we are, on one hand we are talking of this one, on the other hand we are again going to the national importance. That's one part of it. Now, as far as the implementation is concerned, there is no implementation mechanism in the present bill. Now, for implementation, you have to again go to 1958 Act. Then again, you have to go to Archaeological Survey of India and all. Now, the question is, suppose today you maintain a register where you say it's a particular place is of cultural heritage.
Let's say 5,000 of them.
Yes, or natural heritage. When it goes for implementation under the Act, there will be difficulty, because in the Act, those definitions don't exist. So they will say that it is not our task. you have made a recommendation, but the implementation cannot be done because that's not what which you are supposed to implement. So
the problems of implementation, Professor Cambo.
Implementation so far is being done by PWD, you know. Archaeology Act only says that the inspection is done, report is prepared, documentation is done here. But beyond, the implementation is not only done by archaeologists, by restorer also, by art historian, by people who knows about chemical type technology as well as here. So the different aspect of that, ASI is not capable of handling all this one here. No? It needs, just like Mr. Parakh said regarding importance of national importance, it has also to be kept national importance. Like for example, there are certain laws which was created during the time of British time, you know, that important because every nation, every part of the country accept that itself here. So one is national importance, second is secular importance, third could be community based together here. You know, all these different values, what you rightly said, has to be accepted in terms here. So
the problem of employees, the basic, let's come to the ground level of maintain. The basic idea is to maintain these sites, to maintain the cultural heritage. That's the idea.
See, the question is when we talk of outstanding importance or value, actually it covers even the national importance. Outstanding is a broader canvas and national importance. Now that's one part which I wanted to clarify. Now the other thing is that if we look at the provisions which are existing here under the old act and connected with the new act, the difficulty, as I said, in the implementation, because we don't have any setup under the new act for the purpose of implementation. So really, how do you do it?
So effectively, the commission will be relying on ASI, not only relying, but also will be guiding and telling them that this is how you need to evolve. Is that so?
Yes, but only thing is the ASI do not have the information regarding how to implement it. They was covered only by the PWD. When it was set up, only army engineers were there who were implementing all that. Today, only CPWD people are doing here because the training of an archaeologist is not enough.
Do we have enough trained professionals available in India?
We do not have, no. Today, you can't get a good person who can work on the field itself here. People have to be under UNESCO. They have a special area which people are trained in the skill development itself here. ASI cannot take the entire road on themselves here, and government cannot control all that. ASI impossible for the ASI as well to do this, no, the restoration.
Another thing is the commission also says that the person who is the individual or society or any other organization which is at present in possession of the heritage site, now they will have to listen to the National Commission of Heritage. Now, what is happening is, the ASI is always saying that they have no funds, they don't have employees, they don't have this, they don't have the technology, they don't have anything, right? Now, do you think with that in mind and with no employees, and if you remove the present people who are into maintaining that structure, if you remove them too, and if you eliminate them from the system, do you think it can work?
No, even if you look at the 1958 Act, this provision was there because there ought to be certain places which are in the control of owners. So even there the provision was there that you can take control of it, you can even give them compensation, etc., etc. Those provisions were there. See, what happens is that nowadays actually we are enacting so many laws. Now, once we say that this is not being implemented properly, it is like this. Number one, that you must identify which are the monuments. Which
that the roster does.
The roster will identify everything. Second thing is you lay down the guidelines, how it has to be protected and preserved. For that you require an expert, you lay down the guidelines also.
And ASI will have to do
it. My simple thing is that once you have a structure, then you must have for each and every monument a kind of a design, total structure. This is how it is going to be preserved and conserved. For example, take Taj Mahal. Now, Taj Mahal, you say, is certainly of great heritage and importance. Now, this has to be preserved. So many times you say that corrosion is taking place and it is going. The question is that the experts, once they identify a particular place of really great importance, then there has to be a plan. That plan has to be executed by a body. If you have that kind of a thing and then monitoring, the structure should be like this. We don't have that structure. Even in spite of this new act which is coming into, which we are trying to now push it, that idea is not coming into being. of the because it has to be a holistic concept. What happens is we push something, UNESCO convention, and we must accept it. The question is ultimately by this effort whether we are going to really protect and preserve the natural heritage or the cultural heritage as we envisaged in the bill. That is something lacking.
On this note, it's time for us to head into a break. When we come back, we will tell you what the UNESCO representative in India has to say on this. Welcome back. My colleague Raj Kamal spoke to Takahiko Makino, Program Secretary, UNESCO, and tried to understand the UNESCO's perspective.
What is the role of UNESCO's heritage conservation?
The convention does not really replace the international legislation or the primary responsibility of the national authority. The convention is a supplementary authority.
So why is there a need to protect heritage?
The reason why we have to do the heritage conservation is because the cultural or natural heritage are increasingly threatened with the destruction not only by the traditional cause of decay, but also by the changing social or economic conditions, which aggressively leads the situation with even more formidable phenomena or the damage or the destruction.
What is the role of UNESCO's convention in Indian heritage?
For some reasons, we are often being seen as a sort of like a police force, as if the state party is doing a wrongdoing in the heritage conservation, then UNESCO comes as a police to arrest them or not, something like that. But that's not really true. I mean, that's really not true. UNESCO is there to sort of help assist the state parties to make the heritage conservation.
UNESCO is a body of United Nations which, among other objectives, seeks to promote and include better maintenance and management of heritage sites. On the point of violations and penalties, do you think it is sufficient, 10 lakhs in 3 months?
No, even in the old Act of 58, there was no except, I think, 3 months imprisonment and some fine. Even here it is 10 lakhs and then authority, I think, under secretary has to give a complaint and all that procedure has to be followed. The question is that when we are really talking of preserving our heritage, then there has to be a very strict kind of control and mechanism that people should not violate it. This is very necessary. Second thing which I would like to mention is that there should be a provision. When we are talking of preservation, you have maintained a roster, but you have urban bodies like development authorities, you have Land Acquisition Act, you have a number of other enactments which are there, which really interfere with these kinds of cultural and natural heritage sites. So there has to be a provision that whatever is maintained in the register, only under this act will have a power overpowering the other enactments, and under no enactment the heritage site will be compromised, will be disturbed in any manner. This is something which is of, I think, great importance.
On the technical training bit, how important is that? That's one aspect where India is completely lacking, has got no support base, there is no wherewithal, and we've got probably one of the world's largest number of heritage sites. If you go down, right down to the district level, there are more and more and more, because it's culturally, historically, and artistically has been a very fertile place.
I know it's very pathetic what you said. Let me give you slightly enlarge this whole. The first section of people who were in ASI, they were army engineers. It continued for another 30 years. They became historians. People who study history, they became archaeologists here. Today is a very scientific thinking together here. We have to train people who are not just archaeologists, but also scientists itself here, who can look after the entire palette of things together, conservation of painting, conservation of building, restoration of buildings, preventing measures also together here. So it's very comprehensive.
Does the bill take care of this?
No, the bill doesn't take care of. The bill has to be slightly enlarged on the aspect here, so that first thing, who are the people who are going to implement itself here? And they have to be on certain guidelines as compared by UNESCO and many other countries. No, each country has a charter. No, charter is a guiding principle on which act is made.
Though the act, the proposed bill also does say that they will study the whole issue and they will try and identify and build up schools and institutions which will train people.
But this was done for the last 20 years. They have not been able to do it.
But late, but you can't really help it.
To be very frank, you know, you can get the expert opinion also how to preserve it. The question is that ultimately the preservation, conservation has to be done by the experts, as rightly pointed out by him.
Yeah.
And one very important thing
about the point I wanted to ask you about was the entire authority now here comes to the central government. The point that you were trying to make. What is going to be the implication of it?
See, the question is that once you create an expert body, which will consist of all the historians and those who are expert in this particular area, and then you say that the opinion of central government will be final, then what happens to the entire implementation? Because then the central government will take a final decision on these matters. Now, for example, a natural site, you put it in the register, you want to have a plan for its execution, for its protection, suppose you have it. The central government says, no, no, we don't agree with this. They want to have a big kind of a
big brother approach
company somewhere in a natural heritage site which is of highly ecological importance. They want to acquire and develop, say, a thermal power station. And these people say, no, it is in our heritage site, we have put it in the register. They'll say, no, no, nothing doing, we have a final...
They will overpower the decision?
This is absolutely ridiculous. This has to be...
Do you accept
agree with the process?
Should go.
What should be the alternative mechanism?
There has to be a group of people who are also attached to this one here. They may not be full-time here, they will be consultant here, but their values should be accepted, you know. So it should not be controlled by the complete government of India, you know, or by government agencies here. There has to be expert body in different subjects. Some are good in water conservation, some could be hill areas together here, some historical towns together here, some could natural science.
The entire word heritage.
It has to be, you know, more comprehensive. It cannot be controlled by group.
Thank you very much, sir, for joining us on this discussion. It is time for us to end the show. You can email your suggestions and comments to law.rstv@gmail.com. You can also watch our shows on the YouTube. We'll be back with a new issue and a new episode. Keep watching Rajya Sabha TV.